If you've spent any time scrolling through your professional feeds lately, you probably felt it.
Oh, absolutely.
That sort of creeping low-level sense of panic,
Yes.
because every second post seems to be this doomsday prediction, right? About an AI model that just learned how to write flawless production code.
Or draft a complex merger agreement in 10 seconds.
Exactly. Or perfectly analyze a massive financial data set. And the underlying message being broadcast to everyone is always the same. Your job is vanishing.
Your hard-earned skills are obsolete.
Right. The algorithms are coming for your desk. And honestly, it is completely exhausting.
It really is.
But welcome to today's deep dive, where we have a very clear mission for you. We are going to cut through all that noise.
Because we have to.
We do. We're taking a hard, data-driven look at what is actually happening in the labor market right now. And more importantly, how you can future-proof your career without, completely losing your mind.
It is incredibly easy to get swept up in the hype cycle, especially when the tech demos are designed to be as flashy as possible. Oh, they're pure theater.
Right. But the reality on the ground is far more nuanced and, frankly, a lot more interesting. We are going to be relying heavily today on a fascinating piece of research by Dr. Jonathan H. Westover.
Which is fantastic.
It really is. It looks deeply at the AI-shaped labor market. And what makes this research so powerful is that it doesn't rely on hypotheticals or those panic-driven think pieces.
No extrapolations from a 2-minute demo video.
Exactly. It uses massive empirical data sets. We're talking millions of real-world interactions with AI assistants like Claude, combined with recent, highly granular labor market surveys.
Which gives us a completely different picture of the modern workplace.
What's fascinating here is that when you look at those numbers, a massive hidden gap emerges.
A gap that nobody is really talking about on social media.
No, they aren't. There is a profound difference between what artificial intelligence could theoretically do in professional settings right now and what it's actually doing day-to-day inside corporate infrastructures. Okay, let's unpack this. Let's unpack the mechanics of that gap, because understanding it completely changes how you should be looking at your own career vulnerability.
It changes the entire paradigm.
It does. When researchers measure how much a job is exposed to AI, they don't look at the job as one big monolith. They break it down into specific tasks.
Right, task-level exposure.
Yes. So take a DevOps engineer, for instance. An AI can absolutely write a script to spit up a server container or format a JSON payload instantly.
Sure.
That is a task with incredibly high exposure. But that same AI cannot sit in a cross-functional meeting and negotiate with the product team about why a feature timeline needs to be delayed due to technical debt.
You can't read the room.
No, it can't manage stakeholder expectations. So the role itself is only partially exposed.
That task-level breakdown is the critical starting point, and it leads us directly to the data from researchers Massenkoff and McCrory from 2026.
Which is where things get really concrete.
They introduced a crucial distinction that separates the Silicon Valley hype from enterprise reality. They split this idea of exposure into two distinct categories: theoretical capability and observed usage.
Two very different things.
Very different. Theoretical capability asks a simple question. Could an AI system, in principle, double the speed of this specific task based on current benchmarks?
Basically, can the machine do the thing in a vacuum?
Right. But observed usage asks the much harder question, are working professionals actually using AI to do this task in the real world right now?
And the data showing the difference between those two categories is it's the ultimate reality check.
It is staggering.
Let's look at the computer and Mac occupational category. These are the roles everyone assumed were on the immediate chopping block.
The coders, the data scientists.
Exactly. The theoretical task coverage there is a massive 94%. Meaning, in theory, AI could handle or speed up almost all of the localized tasks in those jobs.
But when the researchers looked at actual professional usage,
There's only 33%.
it is a massive drop-off between potential and practice. And you see a similar drop-off in office and admin roles, too.
But why is the drop-off so severe? I mean, if an AI can technically write the code or run the mathematical models, why wouldn't a tech company or a hedge fund just deploy it immediately? Burn less cash, maximize output.
Because of something the researchers call the 80% trap.
The 80% trap.
Yes. combined with massive institutional friction. Let's start with the friction. You have stringent regulatory constraints and data privacy issues.
You can't just plug a public language model into a system.
No, you can't plug it into a hospital's patient database or a bank's proprietary trading system. The compliance nightmare alone takes years to sort out.
Just the legal review would take forever.
Exactly. Then you have workflow integration. Large organizations have deeply established interconnected processes. Rewriting those processes to accommodate an AI agent requires massive operational effort and capital investment.
And the 80% trap plays into that risk assessment as well,
Yeah.
right?
Heavily. If an AI can do a task adequately 80% of the time, that sounds incredibly impressive in a promotional video.
Sure, 80% sounds like a B minus. Not bad for a robot.
Right, but in a high-stakes business setting, a 20% error rate is catastrophic.
Yeah.
If an AI hallucinating a decimal point in a complex financial model happens even 1 out of 5 times.
Or even 1 out of 100 times.
Exactly. A firm simply cannot deploy it without heavy, time-consuming human oversight.
Which defeats the purpose of the automation in the first place.
Precisely. The human judgment required to catch the errors limits the automation. It takes a senior analyst almost as long to meticulously review an AI-generated due diligence report for subtle hallucinations as it does to just write the report themselves.
Because you have to verify every single claim.
Yes. So even if the AI could technically generate the text faster, the verification bottleneck prevents actual deployment.
So for you, the listener sitting there stressed out that your entire department is going to be replaced by an algorithm by next quarter, take a deep breath.
It's not happening overnight.
The reality of enterprise workplace integration is so much slower, clunkier, and more complex than the headlines suggest.
And that slow, clunky integration is clearly reflected in the aggregate employment numbers.
Which brings us to the data that initially looks like really good news. When ChatGPT dropped in late 2022, everyone braced for immediate impact.
Mass layoffs were predicted across the board.
The prevailing thought was that highly exposed roles, programmers, customer service, financial analysts, would see these massive job losses within months. But the data shows that through 2025, the aggregate unemployment rate for these highly exposed workers has remained essentially flat.
It hasn't systematically increased compared to less exposed groups.
We aren't seeing massive waves of experienced professionals being permanently pushed out of the labor force.
This raises an important question, though.
Okay.
That aggregate data is reassuring on the surface, but we have to look closer because the aggregate often hides the microtrends. If people aren't being fired, is the labor market completely unaffected?
I'm guessing the answer is no.
The answer is a definitive no. When you dig deeper into the data sets, you find a very subtle and quite concerning structural shift hidden beneath those flat numbers.
Okay, what's the shift?
The impact of this technology isn't being felt by senior employees. It's falling squarely on Generation Z.
The Gen Z squeeze. This is the entry-level slowdown that the research heavily focuses on.
Exactly. The sources highlight findings from Bryn Jolson and colleagues from 2025, alongside that Massenkoff and McCrory study. They found that for young workers, specifically those aged 22 to 25, the job finding rate in these highly exposed occupations plummeted.
By how much?
By about 14% in the post-ChatGPT period.
Wow, 14% is huge.
And when you look at payroll data, there is a 6 to 16% decline in employment for young workers in these fields.
Let's really think about the mechanics of how that happens in a corporate environment. Companies aren't doing highly publicized mass layoffs of their existing experienced staff.
Because they still need that contextual knowledge and the verification we talked about.
Right. Instead, they are quietly redesigning their onboarding processes through invisible attrition. They simply hire fewer junior employees.
It's a silent reduction.
Because if an AI can now handle the routine coding syntax, the basic data synthesis, or the initial drafting of a compliance report,
the exact repetitive tasks we traditionally gave to a 22-year-old fresh out of college.
yes, to help them learn the ropes. Why would a company hire 3 juniors when they can hire one, give them an enterprise AI license, and have them report to a senior manager?
It is disruption through reduced hiring rather than through layoffs, which makes it much harder to track in traditional headline economic indicators.
Because nobody is filing for unemployment if they never had the job to begin with.
Exactly. The pathway into these white-collar careers is narrowing significantly. And while it's entirely possible these young workers are adapting by staying in graduate school longer or shifting to adjacent industries with less AI exposure, this trend represents a fundamental reshaping of human capital pipelines.
Which begs the question for anyone listening. Look at your own industry right now. Are the traditional foot-in-the-door tasks in your field being fully automated?
It's something every manager needs to be asking.
If you're managing a team, how are you bringing newcomers up to speed if the easy, repetitive work is gone? How does a newcomer prove their worth, build domain expertise, and learn the unspoken context of the business without those foundational tasks?
It is a massive shift, which means organizations cannot just wait and see how this plays out. They have to actively adapt their talent strategies.
So what does this all mean? If the entry-level pathway is basically walled off, how are massive legacy companies avoiding a total talent collapse 10 years from now? Are they just writing out their senior staff until they retire and hoping for the best?
Some companies are doing exactly that, and they will likely face a severe talent cliff in the next decade.
A rude awakening.
Definitely. But the resilient organizations, the ones featured in the case studies within this research, are moving away from the idea of job elimination and focusing heavily on task redesign.
Which is a huge distinction. Job elimination versus task redesign.
A prime example from the sources is JP Chase. They deployed an AI system called COI-IN, which stands for Contract Intelligence. Its primary function was to review commercial loan agreements and extract key data points.
Which is incredibly tedious, high-volume work that usually eats up thousands of hours of associate-level time.
Absolutely. And this system saved thousands of hours of lawyer and loan officer time annually.
But they didn't fire the associates.
Here is the critical pivot. JP didn't take those saved hours and translate them into associate layoffs. Instead, they redeployed those professionals to higher-value client-facing activities.
Like what?
Things like complex advisory work, strategic risk assessment, and relationship management. They let the AI handle the high-volume routine extraction, but deliberately kept the humans for the nuanced strategy.
But is that realistic for every company? I mean, JP has billions in capital and a massive client base that requires that high-level advisory work. What about a mid-sized firm that just wants to cut overhead and maximize their margins?
It's a fair question. But even mid-sized firms are realizing that the cost of an unmonitored AI error often outweighs the savings of a reduced headcount.
Back to the 80% trap.
Exactly. The successful mid-sized companies are using these tools to increase their capacity taking on more clients or projects without having to linearly scale their hiring.
They are achieving leverage, not necessarily shrinkage.
Leverage is the perfect word for it. And a massive piece of managing that leverage is transparent governance.
Which brings us to Salesforce, because managing expectations and internal panic is half the battle when rolling out new tech.
Salesforce established an AI council. And what's vital is the composition of that council. It's not just a handful of tech executives making unilateral decisions in a closed boardroom.
Which is usually how these things go.
Right. But their council includes subject matter experts, ethicists, and crucially, employee representatives.
That's smart.
The friction of getting all those different perspectives to agree on what tasks should be automated is high, but it is necessary friction. They hold town halls and open forums. When a company communicates clearly about what is changing, what new skills are needed, and how specific roles will evolve, they actively reduce workforce anxiety.
Because people panic when they are kept in the dark. They panic when they feel like the ground is shifting underneath them without warning.
Transparency builds trust.
It does. And that trust is required for the next major strategy mentioned in the corporate playbook, which is upskilling and internal mobility. Organizations have to provide tangible pathways for their workers whose localized tasks are being automated.
Amazon is a prime example of this infrastructure. They've invested heavily in upskilling through their career choice program.
How does that work?
They will actually prepay tuition for courses in high-demand fields for their employees, even if those fields are only adjacent to the employee's current role.
But wait, why would a company like Amazon spend massive amounts of capital to train an employee in a skill that might lead them to leave for a different department or even a different company?
Because they are investing in a culture of agility and overall workforce resilience.
Better to have adaptable people than stagnant ones.
Exactly. The alternative, keeping employees siloed in depreciating skill sets, leads to a stagnant, fearful workforce that can't pivot when the market demands it.
That makes sense.
AT&T took a similar approach with their internal career marketplace. Legacy telecom companies constantly face shifting technological landscapes.
For sure, they're always transitioning from one generation of tech to the next.
So instead of laying people off when a specific legacy tech became obsolete, they built an internal infrastructure to map the skills of thousands of employees against emerging tech areas.
Like a matchmaking service for internal jobs.
Right. They've facilitated lateral moves, helping employees identify their skill gaps and transition into growing areas like cybersecurity or cloud architecture.
Taking that a step further, what we are seeing across all these case studies, JP Morgan, Salesforce, Amazon, AT&T, is that the hybrid model wins.
Without a doubt.
Wholesale automation is incredibly rare outside of those flashy tech demos. The smart capital is flowing toward organizations that give well-defined, routine tasks to algorithms, but deliberately preserve and elevate humans for the exceptions.
For the empathy and the strategic foresight.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because this means the individual worker has to completely reevaluate what makes them valuable to an organization.
Yes.
So if the widget cranking and the routine data synthesis are being successfully outsourced to the algorithms, what is the actual currency for a professional today? Westover's ultimate conclusion in this research is a major wake-up call regarding human capital.
It fundamentally changes what we should be learning.
Trying to guess which a specific software program or coding language will be valuable in 5 years is a losing game. The goalposts are moving way too fast.
You'll never catch up.
Right. The new ultimate professional currency isn't a hard technical skill. It's what the research calls meta-skills.
Meta-skills or durable skills. In an environment of constant accelerating technological flux, adaptability itself becomes the most valuable asset.
And what's at the core of that?
Curiosity and learning agility. Curiosity can no longer be viewed as just a nice-to-have personality trait. It has to be treated as a core professional competency.
It's basically a survival skill.
The workers who will thrive are those who approach new, intimidating tools with a desire to experiment, the ability to fail safely, and the capacity to integrate those tools into their daily workflows without waiting for a formal training manual.
Because if you have a static knowledge base, if your entire professional identity is wrapped up in your ability to operate one specific proprietary database or write one specific type of code, you are incredibly vulnerable.
Highly vulnerable.
But if your value proposition is, I can evaluate and figure out any system you put in front of me, you become indispensable.
Which points directly to what AI is currently terrible at. Ambiguity, novelty, and contextual judgment.
The messy human stuff.
Exactly. AI is exceptional at pattern recognition based on historical data. But the real world of business is incredibly messy. Strategic planning often involves conflicting departmental goals.
Like marketing wanting one thing and finance wanting another.
Right. Creative problem solving requires analogical reasoning across completely unrelated fields. And most importantly, business involves complex decision-making, where competing values and unquantifiable risks have to be weighed against each other.
An AI can surface relevant market information. It can highlight statistical risks, and it can generate 20 different strategic options in 3 seconds.
But it cannot make the final call.
It can't. The actual judgment on which option aligns with the company's long-term vision and complex social dynamics remains deeply human.
It lacks the contextual intelligence to understand the political nuances of a board of directors or the emotional state of a key client.
Which leads directly into the final meta-skill emphasized in the research: collaboration or the glue work.
The glue work is so vital.
As technical tasks get automated and work becomes increasingly distributed across global networks, we are relying on complex webs of human teams. The skills that hold those teams together, emotional intelligence, conflict resolution, active listening, the ability to persuade people when you don't have direct authority over them, these become the premium high-value skills.
They are the hardest capabilities to automate because they rely on the subtleties of human psychology. Building trust, navigating the nuances of human relationships, and managing team morale will only become more critical as the purely transactional elements of our jobs fade into the background.
I want to challenge you, the listener, to look critically at your own calendar for the past week. Are you focused entirely on routine execution? Are you just keeping your head down and cranking the widget?
Doing the 80% tasks.
Right. Or are you actively investing time in your judgment, your contextual intelligence, and your relationship-building skills? Because the human connection, the strategic oversight, and the glue work, that is your moat against automation.
It represents a profound structural shift in how we define and value human capital in the 21st century.
It really is a completely new paradigm. So let's bring all of this together. The biggest takeaway from this deep dive into Westover's research and these labor surveys should be a strong sense of reassurance, mixed with a very healthy dose of reality.
A pragmatic optimism.
Exactly. AI is an incredibly powerful tool, but it is being integrated into the enterprise landscape slowly, weighed down by the friction of regulation, integration, and that 80% trap. The massive gap between theoretical capability and actual deployment gives us a crucial window of time.
Time to adapt.
There is no need to panic about overnight replacement. But the focus must shift from panic to proactive adaptability. Especially for younger workers entering the market, the entry-level routine tasks are drying up. You can't rely on being a pure human calculator or a basic code generator anymore. You have to evolve into a complex problem solver.
And while the research provides an excellent roadmap for actionable strategies like task redesign and upskilling looking at this data, leaves me with one final structural puzzle that wasn't fully resolved.
Oh, what's the puzzle?
If AI successfully automates all the routine transactional tasks that have historically made up entry-level jobs, the drafting, the data cleaning, the basic coding syntax.
Right, the stuff we used to give to the 22-year-old.
Exactly. How will the next generation of workers ever build the foundational contextual knowledge they need to make those high-level judgment calls later in their careers?
Because you can't just jump straight to strategy without understanding the foundation.
Right. If we eliminate the junior roles, how do we ever create seniors?
Wow, that is an incredibly complex dynamic to consider. It's definitely something for you to mull over as you navigate your own career path and look at how your own team functions this week. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the realities of the AI labor market. Keep experimenting, stay adaptable, and most importantly, stay curious. We'll catch you next time.